So, is For Honor worth playing in 2026? This is a game that's been around for nearly a decade now, and somehow it's still here. Still getting updates, still getting new heroes, and still somehow making people rage in duels. So the real question isn't what For Honor is, it's whether it's actually worth your time in 2026, especially if you're new. Now, before I start, let me preface this by saying that I am by no means a long time player. I saw the Ultimate Edition, which is what I thought I bought for £7 during the Steam Winter Sale. So I decided to buy it, and I've been playing it since then. I feel like I've gotten a good enough grasp on the game as to where I'm able to talk about it. I'm open to any criticisms though, so feel free. Now, let's begin. So the first question is, what is For Honor? For Honor is a melee-focused multiplayer action game developed by Ubisoft. Instead of the traditional hack and slash combat, For Honor uses a directional combat system, where every attack, block and parry depends on your positioning and timing. When you play the game for the first time, you choose from different factions, which include but aren't limited to knights, vikings and samurai. This is because they are the only ones you are allowed to choose at the start. You'll be able to play the others later in the game. They each have their own heroes, weapons and playstyles. At its core, For Honor is about mind games. Outthinking your opponent matters just as much as reaction speed. I like to think of it as a fighting game, but that's only because of my own experience within that genre. However, I wouldn't say truly that it is one, and neither would many others. It's just because of the similarities in terms of mechanics and how you approach fighting other players within the game. The design choices for the game is exactly why it feels different to other similar games though, even in 2026. So how does the game feel in 2026? Well, for starters, For Honor's combat still hasn't been replicated properly by any other game within this kind of like medieval fighting genre. That's not its proper name, but that's kind of what I'm calling it. Every fight feels personal, every duel feels tense, and when you win, it feels earned. That said, it's not a casual game. If you jump in expecting instant gratification, you're going to struggle. You will lose early on, and you will get destroyed by players with thousands of hours. However, if you enjoy learning mechanics, adapting, and slowly improving, then For Honor is still incredibly satisfying in 2026. Is the player base still alive? The answer is yes. However, there are caveats. You won't struggle to find matches, especially in the most popular modes like Dominion or Duels. Queue times are generally fine, though they can vary depending on region and time of day. However, the player base leans on the experience side. That means matchmaking can feel rough for new players. You might get thrown into lobbies where the skill gap is very noticeable. The game tries to ease new players in, but realistically, For Honor is still kind of like sink or swim. Think about games like League of Legends and Dead by Daylight, which I've spoken about previously on the channel. All three have similar problems. So what's the content, updates and support for the game like? I wouldn't say that Ubisoft is my favourite studio by any means. However, they aren't letting the game go. One of the surprising things about For Honor in 2026 is that it's still actively supported, even considering what's been happening with Ubisoft lately. New seasons, new balance changes, events and heroes have kept the game feeling alive, long past what most people expected. While not every update lands perfectly, the fact that Ubisoft is still investing in the game says a lot. There's enough content here to keep you busy for many hours, especially if you enjoy mastering multiple heroes or playing competitively. Now let's talk about the learning curve. I'll be honest, the For Honor learning curve isn't the easiest or most forgiving one out there. You're expected to learn feints, parries, guard breaks, matchups, frame advantage or data per se, and hero specific tech. Or should I say, you're expected to learn all of these if you want to become competent or pretty good at the game. If you're casual, then you don't have to worry about these as much, but you still want the fundamentals. The game doesn't really do a good job at explaining all of those things either. However, once it clicks, For Honor becomes instantly more fun to play. This is because you stop mashing, You start reading players and suddenly every fight feels like you and the opponent have to think about what you're doing. instead of just sending out attacks and hoping that yours out-prioritize theirs. If I had to give a list of pros and cons towards the game, I'd say the pros would be that, for starters, the game is deep and has a unique combat system. This pairs with the high skill ceiling that it has too. The game is still actively supported, and once you master certain parts of the game, it can be extremely satisfying. For some cons, I'd probably say that the new player experience isn't good. That wasn't true for my case, but I feel like all of my experience within fighting games and other things have helped me learn the game like 10 times faster. I also don't really care for hard learning curves in games, or should I say, it doesn't deter me since I don't mind losing first to get better. Matchmaking can be inconsistent in terms of the skill range. While the game is still being worked on by developers, there are still balancing issues that exist. My last con, to reiterate what I said earlier, the game is not beginner friendly at all, especially if they haven't ever played a game like it. I do feel like the cons that I have just described matter depending entirely on what kind of player you are, which is why I don't really care for any of the cons that I've listed. They are just for like a general sense for every player. Now, considering what I just talked about, another question that must be asked is, who is For Honor actually for? I'd personally say For Honor in 2026 is perfect for players who love skill-based combat, people who enjoy learning difficult systems, and competitive players who want something different. However, if you're looking for a casual game to pick up, something relaxing or for instant success / like gratification, I'd probably say the game isn't for you. This essentially brings us back to the big question, is For Honor worth playing in 2026? My honest opinion is that if you're willing to put in the time, accept the losses and learn the systems, For Honor is still one of the most rewarding multiplayer games you can play. But if you're not patient, it won't be very fun. And that's all for today's video. Thank you for watching.